A new report is calling for Canada to regulate forever chemicals that are used in so many household products. These substances are found in some food packaging, found in makeup, found in fabrics, and it takes years for it to break down, and they're toxic for humans and the environment. Joining us for a closer look this morning is Dr. Anne-Marie Mediwake. Doctor, good morning to you. What happens when we interact with these forever chemicals?
So these chemicals, once they enter our bodies, they end up binding to some proteins in our blood and get carried to organs that have a lot of blood perfusion. So things like the liver and the kidney, even our lungs. So we end up with some liver damage. There's even been links with PFAS and kidney cancers, even some lower birth weight. But most consistently across various different populations, we find that people with higher concentrations of PFAS tend to also have higher levels of cholesterol. And we also find that PFAS seems to suppress the immune system. So kids that have high concentrations of PFAS, for example, tend to react less to vaccines, making immunizations less effective.
How often does the average person come into contact with these chemicals?
Sorry, the average person? Is that what
how
you
often
mentioned?
do we interact? Like, how often do we interact with these chemicals on a daily basis?
So all the time.
All the time.
A lot of our products have PFAS in them, unfortunately. So the reason why we use so many of these PFAS is because they're really good at repelling both water and oils. So anything you can think of that you've purchased that said it was waterproof or stain resistant or nonstick likely has PFAS in it. So anything from your waterproof mascara to your Tefal pans, and like you mentioned, even food packaging, like your pizza boxes, that has PFAS in it. So once it enters our bodies, it can take years for us to expel those chemicals from our bodies.
So let's talk about regulation, because a federal review on regulating forever chemicals found, I'll quote here, a precautionary class-based approach is needed to protect the environment and people from anticipated adverse effects. How does a class-based approach to regulating these chemicals differ from what we have in place now?
So I should start by saying that there are over 4,700 different types of PFAS on the market today. And to date, the main way that we've been regulating these chemicals is by looking at each PFAS chemical individually. And the reason for that is that before we can actually regulate or ban a chemical, you have to prove toxicity. And that could be toxic either to the human body or to the environment. And environmental health scientists like myself that try to understand the toxicity of these chemicals take years, and it takes millions of dollars to truly understand or prove that these chemicals can actually be toxic. So up until now, both in Canada and the international community, we've only really been able to show toxicity for a handful of these chemicals. But, and I'm going to go into a little bit of chemistry here, but the majority of these PFAS chemicals have a similar backbone, and that backbone is a bond between carbon and fluorine. And this is an incredibly strong bond, and it's that same bond that allows these chemicals to resist both water and grease and make them so incredibly useful in various applications. But it also means that they can't degrade once they're in the environment. So the thinking behind treating all PFAS as a class of chemicals rather than looking at them individually is that we know for a fact that the majority of these chemicals will not degrade in the environment, and that they will probably have very similar effects once they enter a human body. And that should be sufficient evidence to ban or regulate these chemicals as a whole.
Well, Anne-Marie Mediwake, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.